All right, we are recording. At the end of today's training, you will have the ability to get a certificate of attendance. I will drop that into the chat. You'll be able to get that. It also is an evaluation for us. So if you have other comments that you wanted to let us know, other topics you might want to hear about, you can put that in there. We will have the slides available to you. Those will get sent out in an email after today's training. I've got some handouts that I'll drop into the chat about halfway through. And then please feel free to use the Zoom chat. We also have the Zoom Q&A that is up. And if you have a question that you would like to ask anonymously, we can do that. So you do have that ability. If you need closed captioning, that's available in the Zoom ribbon down at the bottom of your Zoom window. And it does a pretty good job. So if you need it, I encourage you to use it. And then today we are going to be using Mentimeter. If you're unfamiliar with Mentimeter, it is a fun way to get some interactivity. I'm going to shut my camera off just for a moment here. If you have a smartphone, grab your smartphone and you can scan that QR code, or you can go to menti.com. You can open up a browser window and you can enter in that code. It's an 8-digit code that's there on the screen. You'll also notice that that 8-digit code is up at the top of the slide, and it will be on the top of every slide. So this is a way we're going to ask some questions as we go through. Some of them will be multiple choice. Some of them will be a type in the answer type question. So we'll give you a second here to get in. Once you're in, if you want to drop a thumbs up, that'll let me know that folks have been able to join successfully, and then we will move on here. So we'll give you another couple of seconds to get situated with that. And like I said, if for some reason you get knocked out of it at any time throughout, or if you're not sure if you want to participate and you decide you do later on, that join at menti.com will be at the top of every slide. And I am going to turn off folks' video as we go through. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to turn off that setting. Awesome. Okay, folks. Let's continue on with today's presentation. I've got a question right away for you. What best describes your job? We're just curious to know what roles people are in. So our choices are administrative, finance, human resources, design, engineering, planning, surveying, operations and maintenance, construction, or other. Because we do training for local agencies in kind of that design, construction, operation, maintenance world, hopefully we've got some folks who are yeah, it looks like we've got some folks on the admin, finance, and human resources side as well. It is open enrollment time, so thank you. If any of you are in human resources, I know you are busy people right now. We appreciate that you guys have joined. So it looks like we got a lot who are in the design, plan, and survey side of things. Like I said, I am an engineer. I previously, before working for CTT, worked as a consultant at a geotechnical engineering firm. So that is kind of my background. All right, another question for you guys is, we're curious to know what your opinion with people skills are. Is it something that you're born with, like you have it innately? Is it something that you learn, or is it a combination of your nature and what you've learned? Sometimes you hear folks who will say, well, I'm just not a people person. So it seems like most folks are saying that it is a combination of nature and what you have learned, which is good. That is a good place to start with, because that means if it is a combination of nature and what you've learned, that you are able to learn. All right, are you familiar with any of the following things? So are you familiar with Myers-Briggs personality tests? Usually you're gonna get like a 4-letter acronym for that Myers-Briggs test. Are you familiar with enneagrams? I think they keep changing how many enneagrams there are. Some of them I've seen are 12, I've seen 16. Are you familiar with like type A personality, type B, type C, type D personality? All right, it looks like a lot of you have heard of Myers-Briggs. That's pretty common. When we talk about some of these type things, a lot of the time it is viewed as kind of a innate trait, like you are those things. We will talk about that a little bit as we continue on with this. I've got one more multiple choice question here, and then we're going to kind of jump into some guts of this. So, has anybody in your life ever used their personality as an excuse for a lack of people skills? Like I said, like, I'm just not a people person, and that's why I was horribly rude.
Or have you used that?
Yes, maybe you have said, I'm going to cover the fact that I was horribly rude by saying, well, I'm just not a people person. Or maybe that, like, for example, maybe you are somebody who does not want to present in front of people. And so you're like, oh, well, I'm just, I'm not good in front of people, or I'm not good with people. Or maybe even more contentious thing of, I don't work well with others. I've heard, as an engineer, I have heard that one a few times of why somebody, especially when I was in school, that was a long time ago, but especially when I was in school, there was a bit of, I don't work well in groups. I don't want to do group work every time. Certain folks had to have it done using groups. All right.
I might for a little bit, at least.
Oh, we've got somebody who is, I'm going to mute you. There we go. I think that I've got it set up so that folks are not able to unmute themselves, but if you are able to, if you do join and you are unmuted, please mute yourself as we're going through. All right, so when we're talking about these personality tests, the Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram or type ACD, that is not necessarily the full picture. I know I have taken the Myers-Briggs test several times and I have gotten a different answer every single time.
Yeah, as have I. And, it really is something that just captures you on that day, kind of like just a snapshot of you. And so think of it that way, that you're growing and changing. And in the moment, it might have been a bad day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. There have been days when I've taken that test when I felt very much not like a people person, and I got a different answer. I think every single time I've ever taken the test, though, I always get that I am introverted. And I would say that that is the situational thing. Maybe in a larger group in person, I might be a little bit more reserved, but obviously I'm talking in front of a group of looks like 55 folks. That's not a particularly introverted idea. I also, regularly present in front of groups in person too. So I think that, like we say here, it's not a full picture of who you are. And it can be something that some people use to kind of self-limit.
Right. Yeah. So, one of the questions was about whether you think you can learn these things, right? You're not born with it. So you're not locked in to a certain position. So you already know that you can learn it. And so we just want you to remember that as we go forward.
Yeah, the example with like public speaking is something that I was not always as comfortable as I am now with, but it is definitely something where the more you practice it, it's like a muscle, the stronger that you're going to get at that particular thing. All right, so like we say, people skills are something that can be learned, and practice is going to make perfect. And so even if there are some of these skills that we're talking about today where you don't feel particularly confident with, that's okay. That's all right. The more that you practice them, the better that you're going to get. All right. So, like we say, people skills, it is a skill like any other skill, like maybe it's shooting free throws. Any skill is something you can learn, and more importantly, it is something that you can improve on if you put that effort into it. So, we have another question for you. This one is, what are some examples of people skills? When you hear like the phrase people skills, what are some of the common things that you think of? And we'll give you some time to type in some of your answers. Oh, and we've got an awesome comment in the chat that in terms of those personality tests, they show your tendencies, not defining characteristics. Yes. So on that particular day, at that particular time in your life, it shows you a tendency towards how you might handle a given situation, or what preferences you might have towards things. All right, we got a lot of good answers here. Lots of folks are saying listening and communicating, empathy, tolerance, getting along with people, working with other people in a group setting, Fairness, that's a great one. Being outgoing, maybe, it depends, what you're defining. Um, being courteous and polite and knowledgeable, empathy, relatability, and ability to understand other people, active listening. Good at small talk. I think small talk is definitely something that some folks, they don't see the use of it, and that small talk is a way to build connection. You can't jump into bigger topics with somebody and build that connection until you've built a little bit of a foundation, and small talk can be a great way to do that. Are there any of the rest of these here, Lori, that you're seeing that are jumping out at you?
Well, if we're looking at them through the lens of the three main things that will help you build great people skills, you guys have communication covered. That's one of the main ones is communication skills. Dependability is another one, and self-awareness. And we'll be talking through all of those today.
So one of them that you guys highlighted was empathy and communication. So let's talk a little bit about both of these things. So it's a lot of the people skills that you highlighted with your answers kind of boil down into one of those two things. Being able to listen to people, being able to relate to people, all of that boils down into empathy and communication. So for empathy, this is a Webster Dictionary definition of it. The action of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experience of another. So, Lori, do you want to talk a little bit about how empathy and sympathy are different?
They're oftentimes confusing, and people get them mixed up. So sympathy is pretty much the opposite of empathy. So think about like sympathy cards, right? Like that. If something happens, they'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry that happened," right? Sympathy is more about your feelings. And in that moment, you're consoling yourself, like, "Oh, I feel bad. I'm sorry that happened." Empathy um, is more about the other person's experience. So if you were going to be empathetic to someone, you can still say, "I'm sorry," but it's more about acknowledging what you think they're experiencing. So I'm sorry for your loss. You'd have to be paying attention to what you think is going on inside them. And, because empathy starts with an E, I think it's easier to remember that it's external, it's outside you. And a lot of times people think sympathy and empathy are the same thing.
Yes, and I think that's helpful to kind of understand that there's a relationship, but they are not the same thing. And it is that empathy and being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes is really important. So kind of boiling it down to can you put yourself in somebody else's shoes and see the world through their eyes? All right. So some things that empathy isn't, because sometimes people get a little confused again. So it doesn't mean that you take on everybody else's burdens and put that all on your own shoulders. That isn't being empathetic. It also doesn't mean that you have to fix everybody else's problems. That isn't being empathetic. So being able to see something through someone else's eyes does not mean that you have to fix their whole life. It also doesn't mean that you never upset anybody. Sometimes people are going to be upset, and that is not, you don't have to take on that burden either. It also doesn't mean that you have to just be a doormat and never ever disagree with anybody. Disagreements are normal and as a part of, being in the world and all of the relationships that we have with people. There are going to be times when you disagree with them, and that is all right. It's just can you see where they're coming from? Because it's possible that you are in the wrong, and having that different perspective can be really beneficial. All right. So some things that empathy does require is it requires a certain level of curiosity to be able to wonder what it's like to view something from someone else's perspective. It also requires some analysis of what the situation is and the ability to view it in a neutral way, and with some charitability towards the other party. And sometimes, though, that neutrality and charitability can be something that folks struggle with.
Yeah, it might just feel alien to you sometimes to understand, like, man, I really don't get it, Ingrid. It doesn't make sense to me how you would feel that way. And that's okay. That's part of what empathy is that you might not be able to conjure up the exact feeling inside yourself, but what you're trying to do is acknowledge it in somebody else, that it is their experience and that it's valid. So you don't have to agree with it, you don't have to feel it, but you want to be able to identify what it might be and then check it out with them to
Yes.
see.
Yeah, and that is that curiosity of, being able to ask maybe some questions or to maybe examine things and analyze what is going on with them.
And it's okay to be wrong too, because I could, maybe read Ingrid's nonverbals and think she's really upset and mad at me.
And really, I'm thinking about something else completely.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's okay to try and be empathetic and be wrong. Just rebound right back from that and learn from it. That's actually how you're going to get better.
Yes. Awesome. All right. So we want to talk a little bit about social norms because this is a way, that we are often practicing some of that empathy. There are some expected behaviors that we have, but those expected behaviors can differ wildly between culture, location, even age. Something that might be acceptable for a toddler to do is not acceptable for an adult to do. If a toddler sneezes and says, "You're welcome," that's hilarious. If an adult sneezes and doesn't cover their mouth or nose at all and then says, "You're welcome," that is not as funny at all. It is a little bit more off-putting for sure. The other piece with this is, like we were saying with some of the people skills that they can be learned, social norms are an example of this learned behavior. Where obviously, in that instance, little kids aren't born knowing to say please and thank you, or to say you're welcome. It's something that you're taught as you grow. A lot of these social norms are things that we are taught. And so if you are in a situation where you do not know a social norm, you can't really be faulted for not knowing that to start with. Especially a lot of the social norms are cultural and not just, we often think of cultural as like a different country, but culture can be an office culture versus a construction site culture. Those are different cultures. On a construction site, it is very normal to like leave your car keys under the visor so that if your car ends up being in the way, somebody can move it for you. That would be a crazy thing to do if you were just on the street. All right, so what are some examples of a social norm in your community? So what is something that is totally maybe expected of people in your community? And this can be, I know we've got folks from all over the country, so maybe there are some fun ones that we have not heard in Michigan, but maybe some ideas of social norms. It could be something like, to get you guys started, saying thank you, holding a door, being professional, yes. And that professionalism can differ depending on what your job is. In some professions, it's common for people to wear, wearing flannel. So when I lived in Alaska, I dressed a lot more casually than I moved to Denver, and it was expected that you dressed up a little bit more in the office. And that was an adjustment because I was used to being able to wear a hoodie or flannel and jeans every day. And it was like, oh no, you got to wear a little bit more business casual to work. Most folks, so Michigan deer season starts on November 15th every year. So we are in the heart of deer season right now. And there are a lot of guys who are taking vacations or maybe taking afternoon off or morning off so that they can get out in the woods. Pop, not soda. Yes, that would be, one of those cultural things. Making eye contact and acknowledging strangers. Yeah, especially I feel like maybe the more rural that you grew up. I know that is something that I was with a friend. I was young and in Seattle, and she was like, "Stop smiling at everybody. You look like a psycho because you're too friendly, basically." So asking how people are doing, that is definitely one that I know I've heard that folks in different cultures find that Americans seem fake for asking everybody how they're doing, or saying hello to everybody. That kind of friendly, opening nature can seem like it isn't sincere. Bubbler versus water fountain. Another one would be, if somebody's carrying a heavy box or carrying a bunch of stuff, offering to give them a hand. All right. So how about maybe some social norms that are normal in another community, but they're not normal in your community? So, you know, an example might be that in France, it's really common for people to greet other folks with a kiss on the cheek, even like in a business setting. Yeah, bowing would be another one. That might be a really common social norm, an expected social norm that is not something that is what you're expected to do here in America. Another one that I had read recently was that in taking a siesta in the middle of the day, that would be wearing shoes in the house. That is one that I think is changing from outdoor shoes to indoor shoes inside. I've had conversations with people depending on where you grew up in the country, even depending on your family situation or the time of year. The shoes on or off in the house is a big argument for a lot of folks. Making food for an occasion, is this a potluck? That was something I had read that apparently it is very, very rude in France to show up to a dinner party with a dessert because you are implying that the host didn't think ahead enough to provide something sweet to eat after the meal. So it is incredibly rude. Whereas I grew up here in Michigan, it is incredibly common when somebody invites you over for dinner to ask, what should I bring? Having a drink at lunch is definitely something that is less, prayers at work or even a prayer before a meal. Being something or prayers in school, those can all be things that are accepted in other places. Yeah, what's the most common beverage? And how is it prepared and how do you drink it? And sometimes there's a lot of ritual behind that, whereas I know in other countries, people, they sit down to have their coffee or tea, whereas here we're like in the drive-through going through Starbucks or whatever to get something to drink. All right. So we talked a little bit about empathy. Let's talk about some communication and how to get your message across, both so that you are understood and heard, but also in a way where the other person, you are hearing that other person and understanding what they are trying to say. So when we talk about communication, we want to think about an appropriate tone for whatever that conversation might be, time and place, the clarity of our message, and understanding the situation. I know tone can be hard sometimes, especially in written communications. Sometimes tone can be misconstrued.
Why do you guys think, what's in it for you to be a good communicator? If you want to just throw it into the chat, like, why is it even worth the effort for you to get better at being a communicator?
Yeah, I would be curious for this one too, because communication also often comes up as something that people want to get better at when it comes to communicating with the public. Like in our role, since we are helping local agencies, often people ask, for tips about communicating with the public, and not so much necessarily about communicating with one another in office. And I think that there's benefit to both of those.
And so we had some people say it builds relationships. People won't care what you know until they know that you care. That's a really good one. I want you to think of communication like it's a catalyst, right? If you're good at it, it's going to be a catalyst for good things. And the good things are connecting with people and feeling understood. So you'll either feel more understood yourself, right, on your end, if you're a good communicator, or other people will feel good on the receiving end. You're using empathy, you're paying attention to things. So look at it as it's a catalyst for something that is going to benefit you as well as other people.
Yeah, it makes it possible to accomplish complex projects. Yeah, the better that you are able to communicate, the less that there is going to be misunderstandings with things. And those misunderstandings, they can be about the project related misunderstandings, but also misunderstandings in terms of tone, in terms of prioritization, in terms of who is taking accountability or taking responsibility for different pieces.
Probably save you a bunch of time in
the end, right? Yes. For sure. The more clear you can be with your communication, the better. All right, so how about this one? We have some scenarios for you to go over today. We are about halfway through, so we've got this timed out fairly well. The second half of this, we're going to go through a scenario. You have a face-to-face customer scenario. There is an indirect virtual communication scenario, face-to-face manager and an employee, face-to-face with two employees communication, and then face-to-face with somebody who is aggressive. And what I'm going to do right now is that we do have a set of handouts for you, and I'm going to drop those into the chat right now. And the handouts are, they go through each one of these topics, and you get a sense of what not to do, what to do, and maybe some best practices. So those are in the chat right now. They'll also be something that you're able to download or to receive through email. Sorry. You'll be receiving these through email. So if you are unable to download them right now, that's okay. You'll get them through your email. But what we're going to do is we're going to pick one of these scenarios to walk through. And it looks like this is very similar to, we did this class earlier in the year, early in the fall here. And the face-to-face manager and employee was the winner last time. So that is what we went through. We have a recording of that. I will post that recording on our YouTube page, and we will share our YouTube page with you in that email where you get the handouts and all the other material. And so I'll post that. I'll actually post that today so that you can take a look at that. But today what we're going to do is we're going to go through the second most asked for one, which was the face-to-face with somebody who is being aggressive. And so Lori is going to walk us through this scenario. You'll have some chances to also participate here. So our first thing to participate with is we're going to go through the face-to-face aggressive one. What if somebody has showed up maybe at your office, or showed up on a job site, or maybe they're at a public meeting, some situation where somebody is aggressive, they're angry, they are maybe cursing at you, they're very upset. What could you do that would make that worse?
What have you seen people do that makes it worse?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, a lot of the people skills that I have picked up over the years have been seeing other people do something and be like, that did not help. Don't do that. So let's see, we've got a lot of speaking louder than them, raising your voice, ignoring them. If they are coming in hot, they are unlikely to go away if you just ignore them. Oh, telling them to calm down. Yeah, that's probably not going to help. Arguing back with them, cutting them off.
So these are really useful to keep in mind, that we've probably all done some of these things ourselves, and that we might have things we have to unlearn as we grow and get better at doing people skills. So know that if you've ever done any of these things, right, we're not condemning you. We're just saying that recognize the things that work for you and the skills that work against you. And so we're going to talk today about how I mentioned earlier, how communication is one of the core people skills, one of the core principles. Dependability is one of the core principles of people skills, and self-awareness. And you're going to see those interwoven into all of the scenarios in your handout.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that if you have handled these poorly in the past, you know, that is a learning opportunity, because as we talked about before with the communication, the motivating factor to get better at communication is because you want things to be better and to have situations go better in the future. And so likely, if you have done some of these things, it did not make the situation better, it made it worse. So let's talk about maybe some things that could make it better. So let's walk through some of the other scenarios here that Lori has come up with that are going to make things worse. So in the handout, one of the first ones here is
Don't take the bait.
Don't take the bait.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by that one?
So, I used to work at a place that we considered the whole organization a lightning rod for people who wanted to complain. And you're likely to get somebody coming in, like you said, coming in hot, that you're the lightning rod if you're the first person that is going to be interacting with that person in that moment. And in order to not take the bait, right, what are they wanting you to do? Most likely have a reaction that's equivalent to what they're bringing into you. And it's important that you just stay as neutral as you possibly can. You don't have to absorb it, but try and diffuse it. How you feel about it in the moment is valid, but in the moment isn't the time for you to deal with how you feel. Stay as neutral as possible. Don't take that bait that they're hanging in front of you, that to try and engage them in that argument or to fight back or to tell them that they're wrong, right? That's probably what they want. They want to come in and make a big scene.
I've heard a few people say that it's helpful, like if that person wants you to match their energy, and so deliberately trying to have a less whatever it is, not you might be maybe a more tend to be a more confrontational person, but dropping that down, consciously trying to be less.
Yeah. One of the techniques for that that I've used over the years is to imagine you have concrete boots on, and that, whatever tornado they're given to you in the moment, they cannot sway you. You got your boots on, you're weighted down, right? You're good. And whatever comes at you, they're not going to blow you over with the tornado that they're bringing in. So whatever you have to do in the moment to get yourself ready to receive, you're going to have to figure out what that is that works for you. Concrete boots might not work for you, might not work for you, but figure out what that is for you in the moment so that you know it before you get yourself in that situation. Okay. I guess one of the biggest things is don't underestimate their volatility. Somebody could come in and you could de-escalate them very easily by staying calm, or you could do everything right and they keep escalating and it becomes an incident level type of situation. So know that going in, that you could do everything right, you could practice, you could say what you need to say, and it's on them. Okay. But what we're talking about here is what you can do. You can't control the outcome, but what can you do in the meantime to keep it from, to say those things like we talked about earlier, that could likely escalate them instead of de-escalate them. So some of the things you said earlier were don't, tell them that they're wrong, don't tell them that their concern is frivolous. Don't make them feel like an inconvenience either. If they come in and, during that first 10 seconds of time when they're upset and you're like, yeah, I got to go to lunch soon. You're not going to get that 10 seconds back. They're going to decide in that 10-second window, like everybody does when you meet somebody for the first time, whether you're actually paying attention to them. You get 10 seconds. So make sure that you look like you're listening in that first 10 seconds so that they don't end up getting escalated because they think that you're not going to come back around. Even though you could probably turn it around, they might not believe you then. So don't shoot yourself in the foot with that one.
And that was one of the people skills that you guys identified when we first asked, was being courteous. That is, whether somebody's coming in for whatever reason they might be coming in, is treat them with a same level of courteousness that you would treat somebody who is coming in, bringing you cookies or some treat as a thank you. Treat them the same as somebody who's coming in and is upset.
And, you wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of this one, unsuspecting, right? Don't pass the buck to somebody else either. I've worked places where that has happened, where they just didn't know what to do. So they just ignored it and then pointed them over to me. Please don't do that to somebody else. You know why, because it could mushroom into something horrible, and you wouldn't want to be the one who initiated that, right? And then I guess one of the main things too is when you're putting those concrete boots on or whatever it is that you're doing to sort of stabilize yourself, don't let swearing or rudeness throw you off. That's some of the bait that you could take. is that you can get reactive to things that, oh, I can't believe they said that to me, or they called me that name, or you can't treat me like that. They can't, and you're right, and it's valid, but you have to deal with that later. Just filter that stuff out. Don't take it personally, because they're just trying to get you in the moment to take the bait by using inflammatory words, and they're just trying to leverage you. So try and keep your cool, try and filter it out, and then don't let them have that ability to influence you in that way.
All right. So let's move on and talk a little bit about maybe what a good response would be to this type of situation. So somebody comes in, they're really upset. Maybe you're the only person in the office, or the only person at the front of the office, or maybe you're on a construction site, somebody walks up, you're the first person they see, and they are screaming mad about something. What can you do?
Yep. And so it's good to keep in mind that what is good in a cultural sense for me in writing these scenarios might be totally different for you, and that's okay. So I want you to think about how to make this your own, sort of look at it as this is a starting place, and you don't have to say these words verbatim. Figure out the way that you would say it, if it's not the way that I would say it or the way that Ingrid would say it. Okay, so know that you have room, of course, to do that. But one of the first things to do is to try and slow them down, so, whoa, hold on a minute now, that if you're having a hard time following them, say that, say, can you tell me again what's brought you in, or, slow down and tell me what it is that has got you so upset. That's different than saying something like, you're really upset, you're angry, what's going on? Can you hear the difference between those two?
Yeah. I think the other piece too that I have experienced is that sometimes when people are that mad, they come in and they are in the middle of the argument because they have, on their way to wherever they are, have worked themselves up. And so sometimes you really don't know what they're talking about, because you're like, they have started in the middle of a sentence, started in the middle of the argument, and you're like, you got to catch me up to the first half of this, because I am not following the conversation. And that is in order to get an understanding what the situation is, you need that missing piece, those missing puzzle pieces. And so it is a way to slow them down, but also for you to have the opportunity to gather a little bit more information.
Yeah, it buys you time. So you need to get the information, but it's a tactic to slow them down, to help to get their thinking to slow down. And that is going to help calm them if they're able to be calmed. Okay. And so saying things like, hold on now, and to try and talk them through that I'm here to support you. Like, I want to help you. Like, genuinely take the perspective of like, I'm here to help you. Like, this isn't something that I'm, trying to ignore you, or, all those things that we said not to do. Like, I genuinely want to understand and figure out what's bothering you, because we want to fix this, right? Have an attitude that shows that you're really there to show up for them. And that dependability part we talked about in people skills is to be sincere and to show up to them in a way that they believe you when you say that you want to help them. Okay. And so if you're trying these things, right, and they're still not calming down, because it happens, right? You don't control the outcome, you just control the interaction. You have to have a way to get out of the situation. So it's totally fine for you to say something like, interrupt them even. It's okay to interrupt them and tell them that, I'm here to help you, but I got to tell you that if you don't treat me with the same respect that I'm giving you, that I'm going to have to stop this conversation. And I don't want to do that because I'm trying to help you. And I really am here to help you. And give them another opportunity. You're giving them a second chance from the first time around where they didn't do it. You're giving them a second chance to go, oh, well, wait a minute. I do want to keep going, right? And if they don't de-escalate in that moment, you have to do what you say you're going to do. That dependability part, where if you say you're not going to continue the conversation, you have to actually follow your own boundary. That's something that they need. They need to know that you're reliable and dependable. Okay. And you got to have a way to ease back out of the situation. So if you have a way to, in the situation. Physically remove yourself, do that. You know, even if it's just like, oh, I got to run to the bathroom, or I have another meeting that I have to get to. If you can't get out of the situation, those are okay things to do. They might feel like you're being a little bit rude, but it's okay to be rude in that sense, because you're technically not being rude.
It's in the
Yeah.
response to someone being far
Right.
ruder.
But I'm saying it might
Yeah.
feel rude to you
Yes.
to do that. But what is worse is for you to sit there like a target and just take it. And that's not what you come to work to do, right? And so,
And it's not going to be
Mhm.
effective in calming them down either.
right.
That person's, sometimes the more you let someone go, they just get more and more and more and more worked up,
Right.
as opposed to burning themselves out too.
Right. And so as you're figuring out if you need to extract yourself from the situation, you also want to be thinking about how are you going to give them a path out that saves face for them so that they still have a place to go with their concern. Because they came in, you know, upset about something. And if you're going to follow your own boundary and they're not treating you respectfully, that energy still has to go somewhere. So where are they going to go with it? You know, who can they give that to? Is there a way that you know of in your organization, you know, that you can connect them to somebody who has power to assist them? Maybe there's a form that you fill out. Maybe there's something that you already know that needs to be done. Or maybe your agency doesn't have a way to do it and you need to take today and say, hey, I'm going to initiate this tomorrow. We're going to start talking about this as a team. But you got to figure out what you would do in that situation and give them a path out that is gracious for them so that they can rely on you, that you actually are going to help them, even if you are running off to another meeting and you demand to be treated with respect. Figure out, take their name, take their numbers, you know, say you're going to connect them to somebody and then do it. That's the important part.
And so I guess Lori and I before this had talked a little bit. So what is the difference between you asking them for their contact information and saying someone will contact you, or maybe referring them to a form, versus like giving them your boss's phone number or directing them to their office or something like that? What's the difference in that?
Right. And that's a great question. So the difference is, one, you keep control of it, right? If you take their information, you're the one who is going to exercise the dependability of the people skills, and you can count on yourself, and then you'll know what's going to happen. You'll know if they were communicated with, you'll know at what level of, you know, who is the manager that contacted them. You know, how big of a response do you need to respond to this person's complaint? You keep control. If you give them a card with somebody else's phone number on it, you have no idea when that next interaction is going to happen, if at all. But it could be one of those times where somebody unsuspecting gets it pointed at them and they might not be as prepared as you. So that would be a painful one potentially for your coworker.
And it can, especially if they have no heads up, they have no knowledge of this person has come in and been upset. And also I feel like it does feel a little bit more dismissive to be handed a card versus to be asked for their information and what their concern was.
Right. And if you're doing a good job being genuine and, you know, slowing them down and saying, hey, wait a minute, I really do want to help you. You know, I'm not going to let this fall into the crack. You know, that if you're dependable in your people skills, you'll be convincing and persuasive, and then you will actually follow up and make sure that I'm not saying you have to do what they want, but you're just making that connection between them and somebody who has authority and power to do something. Because in the moment, you don't. You're just neutral.
All right, so let's talk about maybe what the best response to this situation might be.
And so we've alluded to this a little bit, but the best response is going to be a systemic response. And what I mean by that is that it's going to be bigger than you. So even though the spotlight's on you because you're the lightning rod, right? You're the one with the boots on trying to keep from panicking in the moment. It's bigger than you. That there were things that, you know, led up to this person getting upset and coming in that maybe if 2, 3, 4, 5 of those things didn't happen, they wouldn't be there upset. And so a systemic solution is for you to step back and look at what were they upset about? How could we have prevented this in the first place so that it didn't even end up being something that frontline staff were interacting with. And so a systemic solution is going to take not just you, but you might be the initiator. But it's going to be a conversation with your team, or it's going to be you investigating to see, do we already have a policy on this? I don't even know if we do. What would we do if somebody came in, super upset about something and you were alone at your desk? What would you do? And I would never want you to feel like you had to face that alone. So a systemic solution is, let's spread this out beyond you to, everybody on the team, and let's formulate a formal way to address this as a team where we all think about it together. And in the worst case scenario, what would you want to happen? Who's going to come in as a resource to support you if nothing works, right? That can't just be on one person to decide.
And I think the other piece too is that, the last thing you would want is if you are working to de-escalate somebody and a coworker comes in knowing that there is a conflict happening here and comes in with a energy matching that other person, and now we're back up to screaming at each other. They came in, to defend you or to support you, and they have now made the situation worse because they have done one of the things we talked about that makes things worse.
But they were trying to help.
They were
right?
trying to help.
Their intentions were good, but the idea is to, have a buddy system, right? Have awareness before you get into these situations of what would we do, Ingrid, if it was me and you and this happened to us. Just have a simple conversation ahead of time. So if you don't have anything formal yet, you have at least an agreement with you and, somebody that you feel connected to at work, that if you, say the magic word to them, they're going to know that you're in an alert stage and you need their help. Okay.
All right. So I like the second point of anticipating issues that might be the most likely to get people mad. Here in Michigan, we are going into the winter season. People getting their mailboxes knocked over is a common thing that people get mad of. People getting mad about that their road wasn't plowed and they feel like it should have been. There is, a system where plowing the most traveled roads first, and then most agencies do have a policy. Often people have a policy of what priority different roads have in terms of getting plowed. But sometimes the public isn't aware of that, and they are mad because they had a hard time getting to work. Or the other one is that the plow went by and I just finished my driveway and you have filled my driveway with snow again. So there are some common things, but having a response to these kind of already worked out, or knowing what some of these common situations might be, or
because the people, right, you might be a frontline staff where what these things are, right? You're dealing with them, and other people who don't on a daily basis might not, so they wouldn't know that you need to anticipate them. So everybody's got to work together to figure out, do a brainstorm a list, of what those things might be, so that you can figure out, okay, well, we know what to do about this one, but this one's really a challenge. So at least you know which ones you need to work on and which ones you can fix quite easily. But as we talked about this, we talked about being able to communicate, we talked about being dependable. And then one of the last parts of people skills is to have your own self-awareness. So think about how much that's needed in a situation like this, of how to keep yourself calm, how to stay neutral, and how not to be reactive to somebody coming in really upset. Would you be able to do that? Throw it into the chat. Would that be challenging for you to be able to keep your cool and to stay calm in a situation like this?
And also to, like you said, to be able to remove yourself from a situation that is no longer being productive. For me, that is usually like the calmness. Generally I can do, but I will stand there for way too long being screamed at without being like, wait a minute, I don't have to get screamed at. I could leave. And also still work this, get the person some feeling that their trip in was not for naught, that there might be some resolution. Yes, that is unfortunately a reality that we are living in, that some people are going to come in very, very hot, and you don't necessarily know what their intentions might be.
Okay. So some people are good, right? You have the self-awareness, you can stay calm. It's okay if you're not a person who can stay calm. It's just how you look on the outside,
Yeah.
right? So if on the inside you're panicking, and that's okay, save that for when you can debrief with somebody you trust later. But in the moment, right, the skill comes in being aware of that for yourself. And how are you going to manage it in the situation so that it doesn't sort of betray you in a way where it upsets the other person even more?
And I know for some folks too, kind of being aware of maybe particular words or things that do. I had a coworker who you could call him every curse word, every nasty thing. You could, insult his mother. All of that was fine. But if you called him stupid, that was a surefire way to just set him off. He was not controllable at that point. And that was something, he was on job sites where somebody said, "You stupid engineer," and it just went badly from there. And kind of having that sense too of, maybe understanding where those pain points might be for yourself to be able to anticipate that, if somebody does go there, that you are maybe ready for it a little bit.
Well, and that's a great example because the reason that self-awareness is one of the main principles of people skills is because it's a catalyst for avoiding emotional landmines. So if you're more self-aware, right, those things you're not going to get triggered and blow up, where it makes no sense in the
Yes.
moment. So the more you can work on your own self-awareness, the less likely you'll be reactive in these kinds of situations.
Excellently. So I think, let's see, I want to go to the last point here with this best response, that in the heat of this situation is not the time to bust out the policy book and
Yeah.
start referring to it, section A, paragraph B. That's not going to help.
Right. And if you feel in the moment that that's all that you have, you do what you have to do in the moment, honestly. But why you're here today and why we're having this conversation is so that you can go dust off that little book or go look it up or have a conversation with your team to know what would we do so that you will feel prepared.
So that gets us to the end of our talk here. And we want to say thank you. I'm going to drop a SurveyMonkey link into the chat here for you guys. If you fill this out, you will be able to let us know a little bit of information maybe about other skills or topics that you might want to hear more about, or maybe if there's topics that you want a deeper dive into, we could do that in some future lunch and learns, or maybe if you want to have something that is a longer form talk, we can also do that. And then the other thing is that with that SurveyMonkey link, that's how you get your certificate of attendance for today's talk. And it helps us for you guys to fill that out, because then we can prove that people actually came to this and they wanted to hear about it. So it gives us some justification to do more in the future. So hopefully this was helpful for you and you enjoyed it. I appreciate that you guys took your lunch hour, or for those of you who are outside of Michigan on the East Coast, if you took your morning coffee break with us, we appreciate it. Hopefully you got something out of it. We'll hang out here for a little bit. If you've got questions, you can drop them in the chat or put them in the Q&A. Otherwise, if you have grabbed that SurveyMonkey link, you are free to go. We won't have anything else. You'll get an email with the resources and the recording in a couple of days, maybe a week or so, or we'll see. But oh yes, the border counties are, I won't forget about you, Phil, our border counties are not on East Coast. They are on Central Time. But thank you guys so much for attending with us today. And we look forward to having you in the future. We do have some other trainings coming up. We've got Train the Trainer. We got one more of those here this fall that talks a little bit about learning objectives. We've got another one, another people skills. We'll go through a different scenario in that one, so you can sign up for it again. Like I said, we will put it on the YouTube channel, so you can also just skip ahead and watch the end of that one. And then the last one is effective meetings. We go over some ways to make your meetings a little bit more efficient, encourage some participation, encourage meetings to be a little bit more useful for you, because I know we are all inundated with so many meetings. So thank you guys.
Yeah. And if you're still there, I would encourage you to consider what's one thing you could do today out of either communication, dependability, or self-awareness that could make you better at that skill? Just pick one. What's one thing you could do today? And then try it out and see how it goes.
Yes, because practice is the only way that we're going to get better with these people skills. So again, thank you guys so much. Grab that SurveyMonkey link and you're free to go. We'll hang out. If you have any problems with the survey, let me know. You can drop it in the chat and we will try and work that out for you guys. But thank you guys so much and we will see you hopefully next time. Hi, Denise. In order to get the certificate, you fill out the SurveyMonkey link. I will drop it in the chat again here for you. And if that is, it's going to start off with some like evaluation questions, and then you'll get some certification questions about where to send it. So thanks so much. Okay, folks, we'll give you just another couple of minutes and then I'm going to close the room. If you If you've grabbed that Survey Monkey link, awesome, you're free to go. Otherwise, grab that from the chat. We'll give you until 5 after, and then I'm going to close the room down. Thank you again for coming, and hopefully we see you next time.